Today, I have Damion Lupo on our call, and I'm really excited to have Damion here. Damion, why don't you take a quick second to introduce yourself?
Hey, it's good to be here. I'm Damion Lupo, founder, CEO of the EQRP company. I basically set up retirement accounts and help people figure out how to use their self-directed money, their retirement IRAs and 401ks to invest in real estate and other alternative assets outside of Wall Street.
Awesome. And that's always been an important area, Damon. But right now is an especially important time because, as always, Washington is up to a few fun things to make it interesting and to keep us on our toes with our retirement dollars. So first off, there is some legislation out there, and I just wanted you to set the table. What's going on right now in Washington D.C. with people's tax with their retirement dollars, and how is that relevant for the real estate investing?
Well, what's happening is the Biden administration is pushing its agenda, which it came into office to spend a bunch of money. It's part of the reconciliation bill. What this basically is, it's a $3.5 trillion spending spree. And in order to pay for things like green technologies, they've got to find places to create new revenue. It's the only way that they can do things. It's called pay go. You basically pay for something by cutting something else or taxing something. So what they're doing is they're attacking certain things. And one of the primary targets is retirement accounts, specifically the self-directed IRAs. This is what they're going after. And this came up, you and I were talking a minute ago, because they said, ooh, you know what? Peter Thiel we found out, magically, that he has $5 billion in his Roth IRA, and Mitt Romney has a couple hundred million at least. So let's go after those rich guys, those millionaires, billionaires. And basically what they're doing is it's the biggest overhaul in history of retirement accounts, and it's going to obliterate self-directed IRAs, including ones that are already invested in real estate deals.
Okay, right. And so what is the state of the legislation right now?
So right now, the legislation is sitting, waiting for Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema in Arizona, so West Virginia and Arizona senators, to agree to some type of compromise. As soon as they say yes, we'll spend $1.5 trillion or $2 trillion, this will be pushed through, and we're 99% positive these provisions around the retirement accounts are going to go through. In fact, Tom Wheelwright and I were teaching a few weeks ago, and he said there are two things for certain that are going to be passed in this reconciliation bill. And he started talking about the IRA stuff, which we'll talk about. But that's what we're waiting for. It could happen today. It could happen next week. It will happen. It'll happen soon because next year is an election year. And so they need to get this pushed through. So they'll come to some type of compromise. We just don't know exactly the date, but it'll all of a sudden happen. It'll be law.
So again, who is the investor that's going to be impacted by this? The person that has what kind of a profile or what kind of vehicle?
So anybody that has a self-directed IRA that's invested in real estate is going to be hit really, really hard. And the other person that's going to be hit is somebody that has a self-directed IRA that has an LLC, one of those single member LLCs, the checkbook LLC, IRA deals. All of those are going to be disqualified. And so what the rules that they're proposing are, you cannot invest in anything that requires an accreditation or sophistication status. So all the 506 Reg D stuff, where you say, okay, accredited investor, you can't do those anymore. And you can't invest in any company that's not a public company. So an LLC that you have that's a single member LLC for an IRA, those are no longer allowed. If you're investing in an LLC that's doing a real estate deal, if it's not a public company, not allowed. They basically took all the fun out of self-directed IRA investing, and they're blowing up those plans.
And just to be clear, you said they can't invest in one of these, but even if they already have invested in them, they are going to have to unwind that. Is that right?
Yeah. So Congress said, okay, we're going to January 1st, 2022, you can no longer do these things. If you're already in one, you have to get out of it within 2 years, or the entire IRA is disqualified, taxed, and penalized. So if you've got a real estate deal you're in, you have to move that deal. We've got a solution for you, so don't cry yet. But the reality is they're saying you've got 2 years to exit. And most deals are just not 2-year deals. Most deals are 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-year deals. And so people are going to be in a world of hurt. And so it's basically anything that's already invested. But again, it's not just the deal you're in; it's your entire IRA that's going to be disqualified.
Right. So even if you had a $2 million IRA and you had $50,000 in a traditional IRA invested in real estate, it could blow up the entire $2 million IRA. Is that accurate?
It would blow up the IRA. And what does that mean? It means that if you're under 59 and a half, not only are all of the dollars taxable immediately, but you're also going to be facing a 10% penalty. So this is pretty destructive. But here's the funny part, that the National Association of Plan Advisors, which is all the 401k lobbyists, they said, oh, we like this. Why? Because it doesn't impact the 401ks, doesn't impact the EQRPs. So of course, the lobbyists, the bigger lobbyists are the 401ks, and the self-directed custodians apparently don't have very good lobbyists.
Right. So what should someone do, right? So there's Joe investor over there who's got maybe $250,000 in there invested in a deal, and they have an IRA probably $1 million or less, right? They're not the Mitt Romneys or the Peter Thiels, but they're the ones that are currently under the bullseye. So if and when this legislation passes, when we get our Arizona and West Virginia senators in line, what's the investor to do? What's the right pivot for that person to take in order to stop that 10% penalty and everything being taxable?
So the way to fix this is you migrate the assets, you move the IRA into an EQRP. And when you do that, you're now exempt from the legislation because it's not attacking the EQRPs. It's not attacking the 401k space, which is where EQRPs are, different part of the tax code. And this is specifically done with an in-kind rollover. So most people are familiar with rolling money from an old 401k into an IRA. You can then roll that IRA or self-directed IRA into an EQRP, even if it's invested. And that's called the in-kind rollover. So once we roll it over, no tax, no penalty when this happens. You roll the asset that you're already invested in and the cash, move it all over. And at that point, you can continue investing and nothing changes.
So it's a kind of like a retitling of the investment. It's you're changing its nature, but it's still invested in the asset, and you basically don't get penalized. You continue to be able to be invested in that piece of real estate. Is that accurate, Damion?
That's exactly what's happening. It's retitling and shifting the custodianship from an IRA custodian into your hands as the trustee of the EQRP.
Okay. If investors want to learn more about how to do that, how can they do that, Damion?
Best thing to do is learn about this by going to themichaelblanc.com/QRP. Get a copy of the book. You can schedule a call with us to talk about your situation and figure out how to navigate and migrate. Because what we're going to do is we're going to spend time digging into the situation, making sure that it works, and then helping. Because the other problem we didn't even talk about was we're already in trouble with people investing IRAs because of UBIT tax, the unrelated business income tax. And a lot of people don't realize that's coming until something sells. So we're going to exit that. There's not going to be any UBIT tax with an EQRP. And by getting that process started, we're going to get ourselves outside of the crosshairs of the IRS and Congress through this attack on IRAs. Right.
So it was already a flawed investment strategy from the UBIT perspective to begin with. And now it's even more so. And this is the right solution for it, is the EQRP.
Yeah, I mean, it was flawed. And what's happening is a lot of people just don't realize that year over year, nothing really tends to change. If you have some K1s, you get some money from a real estate investment, nothing happens because there's no net income. But when these projects are selling, which a lot of them are exiting now, and somebody makes $50,000 or $100,000 in profit, all of a sudden they get a $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 tax bill in their IRA, and they didn't know it was coming. So it is coming for the average investor. They are going to get killed with their IRAs. And this is a way to solve that completely.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks so much, Damion. Appreciate you coming on and helping enlighten us. And we will be following that legislation. And thanks for helping us know how to address it going forward.
Appreciate you having me on, and just make sure everybody gets a copy of that report at themichaelblanc.com/QRP.
Thanks so much, Damion.